I was 12 years old. I was living in London, and I went up to some fields that had a panoramic view of the city with a friend of mine and a small telescope. And we were both 12 years old, and we were looking at the belt of Orion, with 3 stars in a row. Well, I thought that that's what I was looking at, but after a couple of moments, the right hand and left hand stars moved, and they moved around and did a 180-degree rotation and took up each other's places. And we realized that these were not stars, and it really, really terrified me. It was a life-changing moment, and I remember just turning around to my friend and saying, look, I'm getting out of here because this is really, really scary. And I just ran, and I ran, and I ran, and I ran all the way home. And I became one of those people, one of those people that, is a believer. That I've seen something in the sky which is very odd, very strange, and everybody that I told, they didn't really take it that seriously. But ever since then, it's been a constant theme. It's been something which I've been constantly interested in. It's something that has been driven into me. The experience has sort of fueled nearly everything that I've done, and I've always been making films and documentaries and TV shows about extraterrestrial life and the mysteries of the cosmos. And then what I did is I signed up for a night school course at Greenwich University and studied astronomy. I remember the first time that I got a high-definition video camera. The first thing that I filmed was the moon, and it was a JVC PD1 high-definition 720p high-definition video camera, and I took it outside, and I was amazed that it had 200 times digital zoom, digital magnification. And this was about 6 years ago, and I realized that this is going to change the world. These cameras, which you can go into, your local store, and you can buy these high-definition cameras with 200 times digital zoom. You can zoom into the lunar surface. And I remember standing on the terrace recording the moon, and I knew at that stage that if I could train an entire global team of people using high-definition cameras, that we would smash this monopoly on science, which is being orchestrated and run by NASA. I've given up waiting for some official announcement. I've really just sort of given up hope on the Ministry of Defence. I've written to them many times. I've submitted Freedom of Information Act requests, and you just get these ridiculous stock answers. And the answers that I get from NASA and the answers I get from Ministry of Defence have never satisfied my curiosity. And they have no relationship to the everyday experiences of NASA astronauts who have filmed UFOs from the space shuttle on at least 4 or 5 dozen occasions. One day, after I'd made a film about crop circles and UFOs, about a month after the film was released, about 10 years ago, I started to receive cardboard boxes which had no postcard or letter in them. They were full of VHS cassettes. And somebody had recorded the direct feeds from the space shuttle as it orbited the Earth. Now these pieces of video footage had actually been shown on NASA Select television, but the videotapes which I received anonymously in cardboard boxes were the raw feeds from cameras which the astronauts were using. The video cameras which are aboard the space shuttle have filters on them. They have night vision capability. They have image intensifying capability, which degrades the quality of the actual video image. But that whole period proved to me again that there was something very, very odd happening in the space immediately around planet Earth, and that NASA astronauts were basically spending all of their time recording these unidentified flying objects.
Looks like you got an object right in front of you, Mark. Can you look out there? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Never mind. Are we missing something? It's about your 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock going away. Don't worry about it. All right, that's good. Let's go out. Oh, that flash. That light flashing off the HST there. What? I just thought of it in my imagination. Yeah. I saw it too, so it's not. There was 2 of them. There's another one. What are they? What are sort of lights flickering in here? They're taking pictures.
And then the day after Roswell was published, and this is an astounding book, and if the things which are said in that book are true, then we are not only in a situation where the Earth is being visited by extraterrestrials, but we are also in a situation where the Star Wars weapons program, which was meant to be a kind of protective shield against nuclear attack, is actually proactively being used to wage a war on extraterrestrial craft. And this is happening outside of any democratic process. It's happening outside any public scrutiny. And the Daily Mail newspaper in London recently released a secret memo from the Ministry of Defence saying that they had plans to shut down the UFO report email system, which allows members of the British public to actually report UFO sightings. You would think that the Ministry of Defence would be very, very interested in objects which are entering our airspace and would be very grateful to the public for reporting that, but the opposite is true. And the reason that this memo says that all reports which the Ministry of Defence receive will be destroyed is so that filmmakers, researchers, investigators like me, when we make our Freedom of Information Act requests in America and we trying to extend our search so that we can get hold of Ministry of Defence documents, we will get a standard reply saying that all UFO reports from the public are destroyed. That is a lie. That is an absolute corruption of power. And the Ministry of Defence, as far as the UFO phenomenon is concerned, is duping and hoodwinking the public. On the 24th of August in 1990, near the town of Lubin in Germany, a chap called Valery Vinogradov filmed a cluster of UFOs. He says that he saw many people looking up at the sky, and it's no wonder because you see a circular cluster of unidentified flying objects with a object in the center and another object off to the southern tip. And it's a fascinating piece of footage because we see a sphere go towards the cluster and then disappear, with more objects further south. This is obviously very similar to an official NASA photograph taken during the STS-80 flight of the space shuttle, and that took place on the 19th of November 1996. And these images were taken with the Orpheus SPAS remote satellite, which is taken up in the payload bay of the space shuttle and released into space, where it drifts free. And the Orpheus satellite has been designed by DARA, which is the Deutschland German space agency. It looks into the ultraviolet light spectrum, and these images show we're looking down on the Earth's atmosphere, and you can see these UFOs taking up a circular formation, and objects are coming from behind the space shuttle or behind the satellite, and then as they reach the upper atmosphere they light up. And this is very similar to what Valery Vinogradov filmed in Germany. And then we have amateur astronomers posting various clips of UFOs on the lunar surface, and this has come from an amateur astronomer who lives on the Franco-Italian border. And this is a mosaic of small QuickTime movies which have been filmed in black and white from the lunar surface, and in the bottom left-hand corner you see this dark object. It's passing the Eudoxus crater These craters are very, very large. Most craters on the moon are between 10, 20, 30 kilometers across. I estimate this object to be around 25 kilometers in diameter. Now, it's either an actual object or it's a shadow of an object which is passing over the lunar surface. The distortion that you see is due to atmospheric aberrations. And here we see the object, it stops, it's pausing, and where it was going from left to right, we now see the object pause. These jumps are not being made by the object itself, they're gaps in the actual QuickTime video recording facility of the telescope. And now you can see that the object is heading in a completely different direction. Now, if this was a natural object, say for example an asteroid, which had been caught in the gravitational pull of the moon, then it wouldn't change direction. And now we see it traversing a crater. There's some craters that are so large on the moon they have craters inside them. Those Bailey craters are about 30 kilometers across, so we can see that this is a very, very large object. And you can see that it's going now off the northern quadrant of the moon, and there it leaves, or it goes round the horizon, and there is a track of this object's movements. Its trajectory is totally unlike any natural phenomenon. And one has to wonder if in 1991, during the space shuttle flight STS-48, that these objects filmed by NASA astronauts in the upper atmosphere and just outside the atmosphere are also coming from the moon. And 6 years later, during mission STS-80, which had filmed the circular formation of UFOs, there is also ultraviolet footage showing a very large object emerging, coming out of the Earth's atmosphere. And there are also many other objects as well. On the left of the screen there are 3 stationary objects. There are presumably meteorites streaking past, and there from the Earth's atmosphere you see a very, very large object which is possibly 20 kilometers in diameter. And I suspect that this footage was filmed by the Orpheus SPAS DARA remote satellite pointing back down onto the Earth's atmosphere. And these objects which you see coming away from the Earth really shouldn't be there. Every object should be captured by the Earth's gravity, and that large object that emerges from the atmosphere is a complete and utter mystery. Now, the moon has been thoroughly mapped, and there's ongoing moon mapping missions with satellites going around the lunar surface taking high definition photographs. Nearly every couple of years there's a mission like that. And what I've done here is I've got a moon atlas which has been stitched. All these individual JPEG images from various lunar surveying missions have been stitched together. And the near face of the moon never changes as far as our point of view is on planet Earth. The moon does not rotate, and so there's always this hidden dark side of the moon. And in this animation we can go from pole to pole, and as each year goes by the quality of the images which we get from the lunar surface are increasing and increasing and increasing. It's interesting that I've never seen any lunar survey images which have been sharp enough detail to show any of the landing sites of the Apollo missions. What French astronomers have done is they've mapped these high-res images from the NASA archive onto a 3-dimensional spherical model of the moon. This is the near side of the moon with all of its so-called seas. These are where liquid lava 100 million years ago leaked into large crater areas or depressed areas, and many of these seas are fairly level and featureless. But as we go onto the dark side of the moon, this is the coming around now, this is the side of the moon which we never really see, you can see that there's quite a difference in the topography and the geography of the dark side of the moon. There's not so many of these flat areas which are shown up in this animation as being dark. And let's face it, it's a very large object, and if aliens were to come to Earth, it would be a very, very useful stopping off place, because, as I said earlier, the near side of the moon is always the same side of the moon which we see from Earth. This animation of the moon does not rotate, so we never see the dark side of the moon, and therefore it could potentially be a very useful place for extraterrestrials to have a landing stage and stop off before they enter the Earth's atmosphere. And I believe that the space shuttle and the Dara Orpheus satellites and other equipment are being used to track UFOs which are visiting the atmosphere and planet Earth as they come from the moon.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Big vertical streaks in the sky.
Come on, we're gonna record on this side.
I have no idea what the hell they are.
Santa, unusual encounters, or whatever it is. Unusual presence.
Is that the main one over there? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can see the guys too.
If I can get this damn thing open. There we go.
See it?
Look at that shit.
How big is it?
Yeah.
How big can you see it now? It's real bright.
Man, that's weird.
Let me see your lighter.
No, I don't have one. As a matter of fact, I need it.
Dude, look at it.
Have you ever seen that?
You seen it through the EVG yet?
Come here and look at it.
That's some weird shit. Look at it. Did you see it, Cheetah?
Yeah, there's multiple.
They're all over the place.
There's 67 of them.
But that's the main one. That's the brightest one. There's some over here. I don't know if it's the way the stars are shining.
No, I don't think so.
You also have a red haze over there, so.
Yeah.
That's weird.
This animation simulates what it would be like to travel through the universe at 100,000 times the speed of light. Our nearest galaxy is the Andromeda Galaxy, which can be seen with the naked eye from planet Earth.
Our own Milky Way galaxy is actually on a collision course with the Andromeda galaxy. And in a few million years from now, we will crash into the Andromeda galaxy, and the spiral arms of the Milky Way and the giant galactic center of the Andromeda galaxy will swirl and coalesce into a giant super galaxy. The universe has many super galaxies and even clusters of galaxies. And each galaxy cluster contains billions of stars, exactly the same as our sun. And each of these suns may be orbited by hundreds of trillions of planets. Edwin Hubble was the first astronomer to detect that the universe is expanding from a central point. 13.7 billion years ago, a gigantic explosion called the Big Bang gave birth to our universe. And since that time, the universe has been expanding and growing, with new stars being formed all the time. In fact, this is what we see in the Orion Nebula. In the belt of Orion, there is a star nursery. Huge columns of gases are coalescing and creating new stars all the time. If just one of the trillions of planets in our universe developed intelligent alien life forms, say 1,000 years before mankind developed spaceflight, then aliens would most probably be exploring the universe by sending probes into the cosmos, just as we are doing today. Stars, such as our Sun, have a lifespan of around 10 billion years. When all the gases have been used up, our Sun will go dark. It will become a black sun and begin to shrink. Only the gravitational force would be left, concentrated into a spherical ball just a few meters in diameter. All the planets in our solar system would be sucked into the center of the dying sun. The immense gravitational force of the formerly huge sun would become so condensed that it would begin to suck surrounding stars into itself. Even rays of light, which are made from photons, would be sucked and bent into the center of the dead sun. And this is what's known as a black hole. In his book, A Brief History of Time, Professor Stephen Hawking postulates that at the center of every galaxy there is a black hole, or even a cluster of black holes, whose immense gravitational forces attract nearby stars and even attract nearby smaller galaxies. This theory explains the common swirled shape of many galaxies, which resemble pools of water going down a giant galactic plug hole. But black holes are far more than just a plug hole. Some black holes suck and swirl cosmic gases and stars so quickly from the surrounding space that enormous jets of material are flung out into the cosmos from the center of the galactic core. The spiral shape of most galaxies seems to suggest that black holes do indeed exist at the center of every galaxy and at the center of every galaxy cluster, sucking and attracting gases, coalescing cosmic dust into stars and planets, and over billions and trillions of years swallowing everything around them. Right now, at NASA and universities all around the planet, physicists are beginning to theorize what would happen if one were to travel through a black hole. The idea of traveling into a black hole and then emerging on the other side into a new part of the universe is known as the wormhole theory. At the Hadron Collider at CERN in Switzerland, scientists are testing the wormhole theory by creating atom-sized black holes. And just recently, the Hadron Collider had to be shut down, as physicists became worried that these man-made black holes may in actual fact begin to warp the Earth's gravity and create a catastrophe with our planet being sucked into one of these artificial microscopic black holes. Albert Einstein postulated that nothing could travel faster than light. But just recently, Cambridge theoretical physicists led by Professor Stephen Hawking have devised theories which suggest that there are 11 dimensions, and each dimension contains a separate universe, and that these universes are co-joined together on giant membranes. If one were able to bend, twist, or distort the universal membranes, then it would be possible to travel to far distant galaxies, to travel, in fact, to the farthest reaches of our own universe, and possibly travel to other universes and other dimensions, simply by warping space-time. In Norway and China and Russia, during the Christmas holiday season in 2009, eyewitnesses photographed and filmed swirls and